Okay, just want to quickly record this idea. Experimenting with mermaid diagrams for incremental formalization. So I was reading this paper really fast, just trying to get a sense of um, evidence for face masks and the mechanisms. And this is an interesting paper actually studying the fluid mechanics of face masks. Anyway, I was mainly reading the intro, and it occurred to me that these models might be actually pretty interesting to make explicit and pretty easy to do it. So the idea here is as I'm reading this, I'm taking notes. See, need to be in contact with sufficient distance and assumption. Droplets are usually around 10 nanometers. So I was reading it here. Right, yeah. So less than around 10 nanometers. Size and number of droplets increases with volume of the voice. So I wrote down here people expel smaller and more droplets when they vocalize louder. Assume mechanism is cloth mask and stop droplets from entering their X or larger. Droplets with a diameter of this much are evaporated after about 1 second at 50% relative humidity. So humidity matters. Now where it gets interesting is you can start to formalize this in a model fairly low cost. So the way they actually did it, actually let me just replicate this again. So for example here, I don't care about this anymore. You can actually write it. Let's see, actually write it here. Vocalization intensity increases droplet volume. And where it gets interesting is, I take this note here, and if I think I want to formalize this in a model, I can then block reference this and put it into the model. Now, it happens to already have something here, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this duplicate note. So it adds in here, so let me just do that again. Yeah, so if I take it out of the model, it looks like this, right? Take it out of the model, it looks like this, yeah. And then add it in, and it looks like this. What's interesting is I can now trace this back to the notes from where this claim came, right? So this is kind of a more formalized relationship claim. So I can then use block referencing to go back in here. It came from here, right, from this paper. Usually this would be its own page. So actually, let's just, we can actually demonstrate that real quick. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly make this a page. Okay, and I'm going to put all of these in here. So when I go ahead and block reference this, I see where it came from, which is pretty cool. So let's pretend that I have another paper on face masks, right? And let's say it says, I have a note here. This paper finds that face masks can reduce droplet volume that's exhaled by X%. So here is another piece of evidence that cloth masks can reduce. Oh crap. Oh, that's interesting. This might be a mermaid issue. Okay, let's see. I put face mask here, and let's say cloth masks. This is the formalization of that. So now we have two references. I just think that's really cool. So we can start to go back and forth between this overall model, which is hard to see because of the CSS, but you can change it. And you can start to trace through each of these individual triplets um, back to the underlying context, and um, also go bottom up from notes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, I think that's it for now. I just think this is cool. Um, yeah, I can see I put down a bunch of other um, notes in here, and I mean this is one way that I could imagine putting this at the bottom of a Zettel, for example, to formalize that Zettel's relationships. Block referencing it in here and elsewhere, but lots of potential here. Um, yeah, and then this is one step up closer to a more formal. You can imagine parsing this into RDF, for example, the distance between um, this or something like this and a um, like biological expression language or nano publication XML or RDF is quite high, but the distance between this and that is lower. What's nice is this retains the provenance. So imagine you could have a BAL or nanopub that um, links back to this. I know who wrote it, I know in what context it was, I know when it was, I know what's around it. That's pretty cool. And this itself maybe would be um, linked to, say, a screenshot or um, context piece from the source document, right? Um, so lots of much more powerful mechanisms for provenance and context, but also bridging into um, yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. So yeah, that's it.